Very few people can say they became a WWE superstar, were a founding member of what WWE called the greatest tag team of all time, won the Intercontinental and even the WWE World Championship as a single star, all before their career ended early due to a broken neck and with a pre-existing diagnosis of major depressive disorder with psychotic features. But that is the story of Big E, a story that's impact on the WWE and pro wrestling in general will be felt for years to come, and a story that's chronicled in Big E's new book, How I Got Over. Big E sat down with me in the Notsam studio to talk about his struggles with mental health, how he continues to try to get past them, his journey into the WWE, becoming the NXT champion, finding his way on the main roster, starting the New Day with Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, and watching that team go to levels unprecedented in the WWE, getting all the way to the WWE championship only for his career to be ended early so that he may start a new one as a WWE announcer. And so, I'm happy to say, well, welcome to the Not Sam studio, the one and only Big E. Big E, man, I am so glad you're here.
This has been, I will say, just the journey here, getting to see your neighborhood,
Oh, yeah.
meeting your family, your lovely wife, getting the basement. I am in the basement and seeing it in all its grandeur. This has been a lovely experience, and I've only been here, what, like 5-10 minutes?
Yeah. I kind of, and you know, I mean, people talk about work-life balance a lot, and your book, How I Got Over, is about, you know, mental health and making sure things are taken care of and stuff like that. And I feel like doing it this way, because, you know, we end up doing so much that you feel like, oh, you know, I'm also a real person.
Right.
So the idea that people come in and go like, upstairs is real person land and downstairs is wacko world.
I love the dichotomy.
Yeah.
No, it fits you very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And man, I was reading this book, How I Got Over, and I think it's incredible, right? Because I think that with like this conversation about mental health, that it is so kind of wide ranging now, and that, you know, I sometimes hear people talk about mental health and I go, you know, they're struggling in a way that we all do, but it's not as deep of a struggle as you're like, okay, you know, I feel like this is a little too relatable, right?
Yeah.
And then I start looking into what you have actually been through and went through. And I mean, you talk about dichotomies. The idea that your mental health journey went as deep as it did before you became this ridiculous, fun-loving, joyful, hip gyrating Big E is, I mean, utterly incredible.
It is, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book too. And I think oftentimes, you know, one of the figures that really comes to mind is I think of Robin Williams. And I always thought, how can someone who brings people so much joy, who is just one of the most entertaining people to ever walk the planet, how can he struggle with his own mental health, end up committing suicide? I know he had some other health issues too, but I haven't sat down and watched the whole doc that came out a few years ago, but I remember seeing some snippets where he talked about the fact that he was still really struggling, especially like early in his career with his mental health. And I think a lot of that had to do with, I think he had a cocaine addiction. He had some other issues as well. But often like that idea of the sad clown is something I talk about in the book as well. But I think a lot of people perceive entertainers and people who come off as very happy or very positive, and they think life is just grand. They never have any issues. So I just really wanted to be more honest and open. And just for the longest time, I carried a lot of shame with my diagnosis and what I went through. But, really the kind of the powerful part is the times I'm able to share my story. And when I get the feedback that, I decided to go to therapy or address my addiction issues, or I just did the Chris Van Vliet podcast I did yesterday, someone DM'd me that they were in a hotel and they were going to commit suicide. And then they listened to the podcast and they just spent all day. And we went back and forth. We talked for a little bit, but he seems to be like in a much better place now. And for me, like I think about at 40 years old, I've been so grateful to have a career that was so much fun, I had a blast, but like, what is it that I want now with my career? How do I want to use performance, writing, art? How do I want to use my platform now? And for me, like this is it. This is what really drives me. And there are a lot of other things that I want to do, but I feel like this is my purpose. As someone who was looking for purpose for the longest time, if by sharing my story, I can get someone to realize that they need to seek help or that life is worth living, whatever that is, I feel like, yeah, this is what I want to do every day.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing because I think in entertainment, like you hear, in athletics too, I think, the sort of up and down journey of it all is that thing that you hear over and over again, is that the highs are up here, which means the lows are down here. But the thing that I think that you don't hear as much is like, you don't understand the lows that somebody like you went through. Like the fact that like you went through full on psychosis and hallucinations, and I mean like down bad, and that you were able to get past it to have all this. The idea that, and I think that that is what becomes so valuable to people, that it's one thing to go like, okay, like he was depressed and he kicked out of it. I mean, if you are really sinking, that's probably not enough to go, yeah, but he wasn't where I'm at. Nobody gets out of where I'm at. I think that your story is so valuable because you were down so low, and the fact that you are not only able to get out of it and to find this success and to find a way to feel joy and share joy, but then also be so far past it that you can talk about it and talk about it a lot and talk about it reflectively. I think that feels to me like where it is so valuable for people.
No, absolutely. And I think for the longest time, I felt like I was drowning and I just needed to get to a point where I could keep my head above water and stay there. And I thought, okay, I'm always going to have to tread water with my mental health. I'm always going to have to survive the ebbs and flows. But getting to a point of not just, hey, I'm okay and I don't need to go back to the psych ward because I'm struggling that bad. Not even just like, hey, I'm keeping my head above water and I'm doing okay, but truly getting to a point of thriving. And by thriving, I'm not talking about all the tangible things. I'm not talking about like money, the spotlight, fame, celebrity, any of those things. I'm talking about internally, of truly getting to a place of finding self-love, of now having that mental toolbox of being able to deal with moments where I might feel a little bit anxious and I know exactly what to do. I know how to get myself back to center. I know how to stay present. So more than anything, I think my message is, I think so many of us just feel like with really severe depression, we want to get to a point of being okay. But I thought like, man, if I'm going to have, let's say I'm on this earth for a duration of 70 years, I don't want to spend, I was diagnosed at 19. I'm supposed to spend the next 50 years of my life just being okay, writing this out time. It's so exhausting. But getting to a place of true self-love, of healing, of being able to, as someone who grew up in a household where my parents never should have been married. They were in a chaotic relationship. I never had that modeled for me. I didn't know how to be in a healthy relationship. Now getting to the point where my wife-to-be is truly my best friend, and it's not a cliche. We have so much fun together. We communicate openly and honestly. But me now having all these tools to now be in a really thriving, healthy relationship, to be at a great place with myself, to accept my flaws, to be able to forgive myself, to give myself grace, because I used to be so hard on myself. That for me is like, that's the next step of not just learning to be okay, but getting to a point where I feel like I'm truly happy. And happiness for me for so long felt elusive. It felt impossible. And now I'm really sitting here feeling and knowing that I am a happy person. I'm very content in life. There's so many things that I want to do and pursue and chase, but more than anything, I'm good with who I am. I'm good with a tour, and getting to that point, it took a long time, but I'm so grateful to finally be here.
What was the diagnosis at 19?
At 19, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder with psychotic features.
And is that, I would imagine, difficult even at 19 to figure out how to process it when like mental health is not something that, it's not a thing, right? In your home where you're growing up, it's like, if it's not a broken bone,
Right.
you're not going to a doctor for it.
No, absolutely. And I grew up in my household. It was very much like a man doesn't cry. Even as a boy, like I wasn't supposed to cry. You don't show weakness. You don't talk about your feelings. And I entered the world. I entered college with that same mindset. So I was not We didn't talk about therapy in grade school, in the household. That wasn't a thing. And I grew up in a very my dad's a preacher. We went to church all the time. We lived in church.
I never would have guessed based on based on what you've done with your life.
I know I've definitely strayed, but so that was a big influence in my life. But having the tools to navigate that, it was just something that I knew nothing about. And even there was still a lot of stigma then. So I'm 40 now, so this is 21 years ago when I was diagnosed. And I remember it was kind of big when Kevin Love talked about dealing with his mental health issues, and that wasn't that long ago.
No.
And he felt like, oh, this is like kind of the first male athlete I can think of who really talked about his struggles. And then I remember DeMar DeRozan talked about some issues as well. But at the time, you know, in the aughts, about 20 years ago, these things, we didn't have much open discussion about it. And I'm just, so many of the forums I have existed in have been in these hyper masculine areas. You know, you're playing college football where, you know, the guy next to me is benching 500 pounds. And so you're just, and, you know, WWE locker room's a little bit different, but for the most part, it's a pretty masculine locker room.
I literally watched a video today of you setting the bench press record in John Cena's gym. So
yeah. So that's what we do. We don't sit around and talk about our feelings or what ails us. So it just took me a long time when I was forced to go to therapy in college, it took me a while to open up. But yeah, just being able to manage my emotions, to know what to do in these crises, in these situations. It just took a long time to gain those tools.
I also think that a thing happens to a lot of people on a large or small scale, where whether they know it or not, we start to identify ourselves by our traumas and like kind of go like, well, this is who I am. So there's almost this little thing in you that goes, you'll say, I want to get better, and outwardly act as if you want to get better, but you're also attached to who you are. And so you almost want to be okay, but as you are, and therefore are not changing. Was that any part of you? Did you have to get to a point where you were like, this thing that I've been diagnosed that's not who I am?
No, that is very real. And not that depression, especially severe depression, is it's your worst enemy, but it's also, in many times it feels like who you are, and it's your identity. And when this is the most common theme in your internal life, you almost feel married to this. This is who I am. And in many ways, like a lot of my connections, my dearest friendships, my deepest relationships were connecting with other people who also struggled. And I felt for the longest time a kinship with other people who struggle with depression and anxiety. It's like, oh, we're the ones who suffer. We're the ones. So you almost cling to this.
Yes.
And I think in many ways that prevents you from being able to really fully heal and let go of that identity, because it's almost like I struggle so much in life, and I don't have I don't have a lot of other things, but this is the one thing I can hold on to. This is the one thing I am. And it's very twisted because you know it's corrosive, you know it's threatening your life, you know it's killing you, but yet you feel almost bonded to it. And so yeah, there's that kind of weird attachment to your depression in a way, even though you despise it. And you know, it's a very strange thing. But I think for me, the biggest thing, and I credit 2020 was such a pivotal year. Well, I mean, for all of us because of the pandemic, but very pivotal for me because that was knowing the lockdowns were happening. I knew that's too much isolation for me. I live alone. I was going out. Actually, Corbin lived, when I was still living in Florida, he lived about 15 minutes from me. And, you know, our COVID restrictions in Florida were very, very lax.
They're a little different.
They barely existed. Yeah. Now being in California, it's polar opposites there. But I would go over to Tom's and we would work out. So that was like as far as social interaction, that was about it. Besides the WWE shows that we would do, that were all in Tampa, Orlando, or St. Pete. But I wasn't getting on planes. I was home alone, essentially every day by myself. And I knew that if I just shrug my shoulders and do nothing, I was truly worried that I would spiral and that all the progress I had done through therapy in college, that I would revert right back to that. And I always told myself, like, I don't think I can survive that again. I can't do those ages, 19 to 23 was, I'm not going to say every day was horrific, but for the most part, that was a hell, especially 20, 21, 22. Those ages were, I feel very fortunate to have survived them, and I can't go back to that. So I told myself, I have to do something for my mental health. And that's when I had a friend who suggested doing Headspace, Kat Simpson, who actually worked with WWE for a while doing VIP stuff. But she suggested Headspace, and I tried it sporadically. But when 2020 hit and all the lockdowns happened, I told myself, you have to try meditating every day. And that's the thing that changed my life. And one of the big things with meditation is this concept of learning to let go of the things that don't serve you. And eventually, it didn't take long before I was able to let go of this attachment to my depression. Like that's not who I am. This is not something I need to cling to. So being able to let go because that didn't serve me anymore, it really, really helped me get to a point of not feeling like this is who I am and I need to cling to that identity.
Yeah, and I'd have to imagine too that the other side of that would be if it did rear its ugly head again, the hopelessness of, oh my God, like I thought this was done and here we are 15, 20 years later and it's just been lying dormant. This is never going away. I would imagine that would make it so much worse knowing, it's this thing haunting you. You can't beat me.
Yeah, very much so. And I think too, one of the scary things is when you think that, for the longest time, I felt like, okay, I have this like brokenness inside of me and I have this void and I need to fill it with the right accomplishments or right career stuff. And to then get to the height, to get to be WWE champ, to get to do all these things, to be named the greatest tag team of all time by WWE, to get to all these things and still feel that hole in me. And if I got to build this career and then it was almost like it was all for nothing. Like I got nothing. It didn't fill that hole in me. It didn't really save me to revert back. Is something that really like terrified me. And I think it's an example I've been thinking of because it just recently happened. But Dustin Poirier, a UFC fighter who by all means seems like a really great guy, and that he has a charity where he would raise a lot of money for his hometown of Louisiana and did a lot of great things with his charity. He was recently arrested, pulled off a plane for he was trying to fight a cop, but he was wasted. But I don't use him as an example to punch down by any means. But he's talked about when he was still active and he was getting close to retirement, he talked about being scared about like when I don't have the structure and the discipline of fighting and being in the gym, and I'm worried about my demons coming back to me. I'm worried about who I am and having to sit with my mind. And that was me for the longest time. And I think a lot of athletes too have that same thing. And there's a buddy of mine, Anthony Notarelli, who used to work for WWE. He's now in LA, killing it in Hollywood, doing a bunch of great things. We would have this kind of joke, a half joke, but he would joke that as soon as I retired from in-ring action, within 48 hours, I need to be on suicide watch. And that came from a very real place, because it's like once the hustle and bustle of the road is over, once that all comes to an end and I just have to figure out life, like real life, being home, not being on the road, being alone with my mind every day, I was truly worried about not having that structure, not having the constant distraction. And I truly think that if it wasn't for mindfulness and meditation and for me taking an active role in deciding to work on my mental health daily, I think there's some real concerns that once the in-ring career was over, that I could revert back to where I was in college. And I truly don't know if I could survive that again.
Do you think that that's why, one of the reasons why you were okay when it came to an end, when like you got the diagnosis and it's like, you just broke your neck, dude, it's done. Do you think that you kind of instantly knew, because of the discipline that you've built up, because of the work that you've done, being not okay with this is not an option? I have to be okay with this. I've done the work to be okay with this. And now we have to move forward in a way that we're okay with this.
Yeah. And that was, I credit meditation and mindfulness so much, because for me, one of the great things, and I've heard of the concept of neuroplasticity. I've heard of this idea of rewiring your brain, and I can understand it logically, but I could not understand it really in practice until it actually happened. because there were certain things that there's this woman that I was seeing at the time, really lovely woman, but we were, she was mostly in New York, and like it was long, and she just kind of sent me this long text message about like, I just can't work. And usually that for me would always have me spiral, this idea of it's me, I'm the problem, I'm not lovable, whatever. But that was the first indicator. When she sent that, I was truly happy for her that she could express her feelings, because she's very lovely, but a little bit more introverted. But it wasn't a reflection of me. And that moment for me was so exciting. It's so weird, because that moment of her sending this message of essentially like, we're gonna break off, whatever this is, and me reacting that way was so thrilling, because it's this thought loop I would always get on, and lead to spiraling, and lead to shame and self-loathing, and my depression getting worse every single time. I would react every single time this way. And now I'm reacting so differently. And I sat with that feeling, and it was the same thing the next day and the next day. And it's exciting to me when you're able to take things and reframe them and have a different perspective. Because in the past, in college, I tore both my ACLs, broke my right patella, tore my left pec, all in 2.5 years. And every injury just made my mental health worse and worse and worse. And it got really, really bad. But now with this injury, there was none of that. There was no, when I broke my neck, there was no spiral. I was able to, instead of focusing, having that mindset of, here are all the terrible things, here are all the potential worries. Because at one point they were talking about, screwing into my skull to put a halo. Because when my neck wasn't initially healing in that 4 to 6 week period the way they wanted to, a halo was on the table. Another doctor talked to me about the option of fusing my C1 and C2. And he told me, because the fusion would be so high up, I wouldn't have much rotation in my neck. So effectively, I would be disabled. I wouldn't be able to drive. And that idea of needing to be driven, I'm in my 30s still, of never being able to drive again because I don't have enough rotation in my head. Those things, I never fixated on them because of the meditation and mindfulness. And instead, I was able to remain grateful, because the fact, it took me 3 days of being on my phone for hours and hours to get back to everyone who texted, every DM, every call. I had so much support. I had so many people who sent me, Mustafa Ali, a lovely human being. He sent me a Seinfeld Lego set of Jerry's apartment.
It's in there. I got it.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
It's over there.
But like, Seinfeld's my favorite show.
Yeah.
But I hadn't really like played with Legos in so long. But the idea of sitting down, I'm in the neck brace and I'm home every day. I would be excited to wake up and, okay, today I'm gonna work on this section of the apartment. It's so much fun. But I had so much support, and so many people who sent flowers, who sent their regards. It's like, for me, the focus was not, woe is me, career is over, I could be disabled. It's like, man, you have this new lease on life. You're not in pain. You have your health. You have a support system. So I was able to reframe and not focus on all the potential negatives, but instead I was able to look over here, look at all the beauty of life, look at how much I had. It's like, it would be so disrespectful to all these people who supported me to be upset. Like, it wasn't even, I didn't even know how to be upset about it all. It was gratitude that I'm still here. I'm not in pain. I got so many people who are taking care of me. WWE, again, like, not to brown nose, but I'm so thankful the fact I never had to worry about a medical bill. I didn't have to worry about finding a doctor. That was all taken care of for me. So it's like, what do I have to complain about? I got a great life.
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. Do you think, because, the entertainment industry can be real tough for some reason? First of all, I think because it gives people attention, it draws people in that struggle generally, which is bad because it's bad for people who struggle just because of the ups and downs and everything. Yeah. But do you think because what you went through, and by the way, it is to a degree terrifying when you describe like how bad those injuries were for you when you were in college. Because I remember when I was a freshman in college, when I made this friend that was like, I mean, to this day, I haven't spoken to him in years, but if I did, it would be like, like old times again, because, within that first freshman year, we became best friends instantly. But I remember specifically that he was a walk-on on the football team, and he got hurt halfway through, and he couldn't play anymore. And I mean, he would spend days in a dark room. And I was sitting there because I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the maturity, kind of rolling my eyes, going, he's got to get over it. And like listening to your struggle, going like, that dude was really struggling and needed support. But do you think that because you went through how much you went through from the ages of 19 to 23, that when you get into WWE and, you know, the just the sort of mental gymnastics that WWE and all entertainment and all athletics are, with the sort of, okay, we're doing this today, all of a sudden this is here, now you're up here, well, now you're going to be down here, yep, this was the plan, but now that's changing and this is better for you, now that's worse for you. Do you think it, in a way, made it easier to deal with because it wasn't as severe as what you had been through?
In ways, yes. But I also, in many ways, I also think my childhood, I kind of think no one can really hurt me as bad as my dad hurt. You know, it's like once you deal with a father like that who is so terrifying and all, it's almost like being yelled at by Vince or anyone else in the office is like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Like, same thing with football coaches and everything who would cuss you out. It's like, I guess you're kind of callous to it. So there was that element as well. But no, it's interesting. You talk about a lot of that. I think of a lot of what brings people to entertainment. And I think a lot of people who are outside of the industry don't understand how many of us carry this real void and how much we are seeking to fill something in us, some lack of approval we didn't get from parents or for when. And for me, that was the same thing. Like, I was looking for validation through athletic achievement, through my success in WWE. I thought for myself, like, I would be able to prove to myself that I was someone who was worthy of good things because I was an entertainer that people cared about. So that is something that I think a lot of us grapple with. Some of us are more open, some of us are less open, but I do find a lot of us, I still think, carry this void with us. But I think some of my past prepared me for the ups and downs of WWE, but I will say I did still have my first year or so on the road wasn't always easy, you know, especially the stuff with like Dolph and AJ were great. I love being able to be teamed with them. So that was great for me. But then when I was done with Dolph, I went with AJ and I still had something and I was still featured. But after that, it was a tough time. And, you know, you're getting a lot of different feedback. For a while, I was told. So also my initial main roster run is a little odd because at the same time, I'm this silent, told like Paul Heyman pulled me aside and the idea was for me to be stoic, not to really show emotion. So I do that. I'm this silent, emotionless heater or bodyguard on the main roster. And then I'm going directly, as a heel, then I'm going directly back down to NXT where I'm the NXT champion. And I'm like, are we putting the title on the main roster? Are we using that at all? And like no mention of it, pretend like it's in another universe. So I'm going back down to NXT where I'm this babyface who was doing the 5 count.
And yeah, because I was going to say, like that was the first thing that really clicked for you. Like, you were beloved as NXT champion. Like, that small Florida crowd loved the King Kong Bundy 5 count, loved you as NXT champion. And I remember, because I was one of the, you know, hardcores that even back then was watching NXT and seeing you, and you were showing personality as the 5 count guy, and seeing you come up, and there was this weird sort of separation where I'm like, do I turn my feelings off after this program and start anew on this program and go back and forth?
But that was the direction. And so I just, you know, at the time, like, I don't have any pull. I'm 26 and it's just like, this is what the boss wants. This is what we're doing. So, you know, and there were definitely some ups and downs. I credit Celeste Bonin, AKA Caitlin, who helped me out. We were just like such good friends and still are to this day. Obviously, you know, it's hard when you don't see each other as much. So we don't talk as much as we used to, but the love is still there. But she helped me through a lot of that. And I think we both kind of needed each other at the time, where we were both kind of floundering at times in our career. And but more than anything, man, I credit, you know, once Kof, Woods, and we all got together, those guys, like, man, we had such a tight bond that even when initially, like, you know, the like 2014 when we first started, first several months, awful. You know, they're very rough. We're getting a lot of, even just getting the idea off the ground before we get on. I think we get on TV in Fort Lauderdale for the first time when Woods comes out in that white and red suit. But even before then, like, there was a lot of back and forth with just getting to that moment. Then we're on TV as this kind of this pseudo new nation of domination thing for about a week. Then it gets pulled. Then we're off again. So that took a while. But having those guys just made dealing with the ups and downs of creative, of the road, so much easier, man. Like I have to give those guys so much credit because my career was so fun. And even the times that were frustrating, when you have two guys who see the business the same way and who have your back, it's like, oh, okay, we can deal with any of the ebbs and flows together. So just having those guys made everything so much easier. So I had, some mental difficulties still with the ups and downs of entertainment up to 2014. But from then on, man, it was just having those guys made it so much easier.
Well, what was it like originally when, because I think the story is that you had said in other interviews and stuff that Dusty Rhodes said, we'll do the 5-count thing with you.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to me, it's a fun thing in wrestling that we have gotten to the point where you can take things that worked because it's been around, I mean, it's 30, 40 years ago at that point. You can do it again, and it feels like fans that were around or know what it is like the homage, and fans that weren't just like it for what it is. When you first find something that works, and it works to the point that it's still, NXT is so small then, but it is bubbling into something. And by the way, your class is so unique because I think, like, not only are you with Roman Reigns, who, while he doesn't have a ton of experience, everybody has said that from the very beginning, they were like, yep, he's one of our guys. And Seth Rollins is there too, who is already one of the best wrestlers in the world, is Tyler Black. We all knew who he was. And so I would imagine that when you have people like that there, finding where you fit in can be difficult. So for you to step up and have something that worked, how did that feel?
It was amazing. So I think I'd been in developmental close to 3 years at that point. But I needed the time to learn because I came in
to develop.
Yeah, that's what
Right?
developmental is for. But I had zero experience. I didn't wrestle in the indies. I had all of my wrestling experience is in WWE, so I really needed the time. But no, you're spot on. So I don't come from. I'm not second generation, third generation. I don't have any wrestling lineage. I'm not 6 feet tall. I'm very green. I'm just a failed former football player trying to find my way. So yeah, in many ways, I felt like so that era of FCW. So we were still training at FCW and performing at NXT. So it was FCW/NXT. That era is interesting because you have those surefire Hall of Famers, those big names, but you also have a lot of guys who never see the light of day as far as the main roster. And not to be disrespectful, but there are a decent amount of people in FCW at the time where you kind of scratch your head as to why they were even signed. They don't have the size. They're not charismatic. A lot of talented people who didn't make it as well. But yeah, that was tough, man, because I'm trying to figure out what is my thing? How do I get noticed? And I have to give, thank God for Dusty, because even though I didn't get to do the 5-count on the main roster, I think it put me on the office's radar. They understood, okay, he has something here. And I'd like to think that maybe they would still find something for me, but who knows? But honestly, like, I had to be able to come up attacking John Cena to close the show, and you're paired, mind you, Dolph Ziggler is red hot at the time. As a heel, he's one of those guys that people have just been clamoring for to get more opportunities. AJ, also red hot, beloved, probably the most popular woman in WWE at the time. I'm not sure it was even that close. So to come up that way, man, what an honor. And the great thing too was for me, although in many ways I felt like I was ready, it's like once you get to the main roster and you're in the ring with those guys, you realize, oh no, I'm not as ready as I thought. Especially because most of that NXT 5-count run was squash matches. I wasn't in the ring putting on 15, 20-minute bangers. I wasn't learning even I knew how to do some of this stuff, but I didn't know how to do it well. I wasn't great at it. So to be able to come up and learn, my first main roster match wasn't until WrestleMania against Daniel Bryan and Kane.
Which again, you want to talk about, first of all, Daniel Bryan and Kane, two of the greatest of all time, but you want to talk about hot acts.
Team Hell No was so much fun.
Crazy.
Yeah. So for me to be able to, I think I got called up in December, and December through April, really, I have like my one or two spots where, maybe Cena's at the end, he hits me in the head with a briefcase, but I interfere a couple times. But I'm getting to be there ringside I remember I was at the Garden, maybe 3 weeks after I got called up, being ringside at the Garden in the main event with John Cena, Ziggler, seeing just two absolute professionals and getting to learn, like what a great opportunity to learn. So even as they're putting the match together in the back, I'm there and I'm just absorbing it. I'm there in the car with Dolph and AJ, and we're talking about ideas. I'm learning from them. So for me, that was such a great crash course on, like, you know, getting to understand how to do this craft on a real level. And then, you know, the night after WrestleMania, the night after my first main roster match, the Monday Night Raw after, I'm wrestling Bryan in a singles match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Arguably the greatest professional wrestler of our generation.
I would say that's a good argument.
Yeah. And getting to be in a ring with him. So I was just really, really blessed to be able to be around some of the best guys to ever do it.
This is maybe an odd question, but it occurred to me as I was watching some stuff. And so I said, if it occurred to me, it's probably occurred to other people. In the FCW days, when you were first starting, you were in tiny little trunks.
Baby.
Tiny little trunks.
Baby trunks.
Showing off that whole body.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of your run, you strap it up.
Yes.
What was the decision? Because you do, from one man to another man. You have an impressive, I mean, your lower body's fantastic too, but the upper body,
yes,
I mean, it's quite a display.
I appreciate that.
Why was the decision made to cover up that spectacle?
Well, so actually, one of the things that really helped me too is, so in FCW, we started, I think 2010. So maybe about a year after I started there, we started training at Cena's gym. We started training with Rob McIntyre, and Rob.
And was that just Cena would open it up and go like, yeah, bring.
So it's actually more structured than that. So in FCW, it was like, hey, if you're in FCW, here's your list, and here's your lifting group. So you either train in the morning or you train in the afternoon, or so you train at FCW in the morning, and then so if you were at FCW in the morning, you were working out in the afternoon at Cena's gym, and vice versa. So there were different lifting groups, and so I trained with Rob for a little bit, and then one day he pulled me aside and say, hey, have you ever thought about doing some powerlifting? And Rob actually trained me. We did a meet in Florida. Trained me for that, and then we did nationals in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I won nationals there. And so from there, the reason I decided to lose the trunks was because in powerlifting, you wear a singlet. And I started doing this Florida's Strongest Man gimmick, which didn't really have any legs, but it gave me something to do because all of our shows at the time in FCW are in Florida. So I would come out and it kind of, a little bit of the antecedents of the town was then. So I would come out and I would use this voice and I would introduce myself as, and now, welcome to the ring. So in this kind of, almost professorial delivery of like, I'm coming to the ring and I am Florida's Strongest Man and here are all my accolades and I'm going to beat up my opponent. So it just gave me something because I had the hardest time trying to figure out a gimmick that people could connect with. So then I moved to the singlet. And for me too, it's very easy for me. I wouldn't say very easy. It's easier for me to put on weight and put on muscle. It's very hard for me to stay lean. So being lean enough to be in trunks regularly was a task. So I was very happy to be able to put on a little bit more weight, indulge a little bit more and put the singlet straps on. So that's the reason for the singlet, was getting to do the powerlifting stuff and just knowing I can't maintain this lean body.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that makes sense, and it takes one of the pressures off your shoulders.
Absolutely.
The New Day is such an incredible story in and of itself. And I mean, I remember a couple of things I remember about early New Day. I remember how I felt when New Day started, that it was clear what it was, and there was something entertaining about it, and I liked that it was something. You know what I mean? It was characters. It was like there was the revivalist kind of, Southern Baptist thing going on. But then the part that made me roll my eyes, and this wasn't on you guys, was that it was clear to me that they were going, like, they wouldn't actually say that, right? It was non-secular because you don't want to offend anybody.
Sure.
So it started, I was like, okay, well, there's no there. It just becomes a thing to do. But I remember being, and I want to say, because for some reason this moment stuck in my head. I want to say it was a Madison Square Garden house show. And I'm sure it was like any other live event. I'm sure you guys did this a lot. But there was a moment where the crowd is chanting, New Day sucks, New Day sucks. And you hadn't gone all the way into being heels. But Woods was on the apron. I must have been you and Kofi were the tag team, and Woods was on the apron. And he was doing it with everybody. acting as if he heard New Day Rocks. And he was like, thank you guys, New Day Rock. And literally in that one moment, I went, oh my God, it's it. It's there. That's it. That's it. I said they're golden.
Yeah, and that was when we first became heels. That was our ethos, is this idea of being delusional heels.
Yes,
right.
Oblivious.
Yeah,
yeah.
And then I remember we cut one promo where we said people aren't chanting. You guys are mishearing it. It's not New Day sucks. They're chanting for New Day socks. Yeah. They want socks. So we're gonna go to merch and we're gonna make sure they get those New Day socks. But for us, we knew we were dead in the water with this initial gimmick. But we had to do it. But the good thing, to your point, was we got vignettes.
Yes.
And we had something. We had a character. And I think the death knell for any wrestler is having nothing. When you're just a guy who goes out there in trunks and you just do stuff.
And you could argue that even though you were winning the Intercontinental title as a singles guy, like once you were not a bodyguard, between Bodyguard and New Day, you were just, well, that's Big E. They call him that because he's big. You know what I mean? That was it.
There's not much to it.
Yeah.
And especially at the time, man, Mark Henry's on the roster,
yeah.
Big Show's on the roster.
No, he's not Big Isty. There's bigger guys. He's just also somewhat big.
No, so you're spot on. But but that moment, I think I'm so glad. Eventually, the office, we were able to talk Vince and creative into, this is not working. But then they started booing us. And I also have to give so much credit to TJ, to Tyson Kidd, and Cesaro, because there was a point where, so we ended up doing, I think we did a 4-way pre-show tag match in 2015. And then we went right into doing the Andre the Giant Battle Royal also on the pre-show. But we were just not a factor. We were probably this close to being broken up. But then shortly after that, we were paired with Cesaro and Kidd, and we did the European tour. And we go over to Europe, and on night one, those guys are the heels, we're the faces. But those guys, they're such tremendous professional wrestlers. And Natty was with them at the time too. And we were able to do a double switch. So those guys, we would come out first, booed, people hated us. They come out, get cheered. And then, which for me, the essence of working is, okay, the crowd is giving us something different than what we planned. How do we change it on the fly? Like for me, that improvisational nature of our industry, that's working for me, is how do we shift this in real time to give people what they want? So those guys were amazing, man. Cesaro was just such a master. Same thing with TJ in the ring. And then we just kind of communicated through the ref. We looked at each other and we're like, do we switch this? So we just switched it live. Instead of us shining on them, they started shining on us. We ended up putting the heat on them. They blew a comeback. We just kind of figured it all out in the ring. And those guys are so smooth and so good. We did that. We got to the back. The producers weren't mad at us. They took notes and they let the office know, like, actually the reactions were great. And that's what the people wanted. That's what the fans there on that first night, that's what they wanted. We showed up again the next night with the same idea of, okay, let's go in with the idea of, we're going to play this as the baby faces we are. You're the heels. Let's try to play this straight. We go out there, same, immediately we knew, all right, we're switching it. So we just look across the ring at those guys. We doing it again? Yep. We do it again every single night. I think we had 12 dates in Europe. And I think 10 or 11 of them were house shows. And it was the same thing every single night. And then we had this body of work where we were able to eventually, when we got back to the States, we had all the reports from the producers, because they put in reports after the shows to tell the office, this is how the crowd responded, this is what worked, what didn't work. So thankfully we had all those shows to say, it's clear people do not like us, we should be heels. And then we got back to the States and we had similar responses as far as like us clearly not being loved. So that moment was just two incredible professional wrestlers who I wish got a longer run together. And it's so interesting because I love Claudio, just the man. But so much of my career and our careers have been, we were paired together. I remember when he was with Swagger, we did stuff together with the Real Americans. He was with Shinsuke for a bit. We were feuding with them. Of course, The Bar, him and Shamo. So, Claudio had so many different dance partners, but so many of them, they were all great. And I got to thank him because he's tremendous. And without that, I don't know if we were finally given the ability to turn heel. And then I think, and not to point the finger at anyone, but also a lot of the issue with our initial babyface run was there was so much micromanagement to the point where certain producers, they would come out and on your entrance, you need to clap here, skip here, move in this way. And it's just very hard to be free as a performer when you're worried about all those notes and all those little beats that you need to hit. But thankfully, by the time we turned heel, a lot of those reins were finally taken off. We just got to do us, and that was it. As soon as we got to be more creative and have more of a voice in the process, things just took off for us.
Yeah, that's the real sink or swim thing, where it's like, and I feel like you guys saying we're about to be broken up and who knows how long we're even going to last here, and especially for Kofi, because like you and Woods had just come up, but Kofi had a singles run, so it's almost like if this thing doesn't work, Kofi could be in a lot of trouble. But it felt like when that heel turn started, you guys knew that and said, well, you know, what have we got to lose now? And just started completely being yourselves, and whatever kind of creative idea popped into your head, let's just try it because our backs are up against the wall. And I think what was magic about New Day is that feeling, even when you guys became the biggest tag team act in the company, that thing never left, where it felt like you guys were going, okay, and here's 5 minutes for the New Day. I don't know. They're going to go out. I don't know. We're going to follow their lead.
Right. And I'm so grateful for that freedom. And then I got to a point too. So now I'm trying to do some other things outside of WWE as far as like producing and whatnot. But I got to a point where I realized, actually, we were writing our own segments. We were producing our own segments. We were thinking about blocking and direct so much. And I'm not going to say we didn't have very talented writers who helped us along the way too. But we decided to be in the driver's seat of creative because, Woods would often say, let me sink or swim on my own merits. And we had this, we all were aligned. We all had the same mindset. If this thing fails and we do it your way, I can't live with that. But if it fails and it was on us, I'm okay with that because I just wasn't good enough. We didn't have it. The timing wasn't right. That is fine. But I'm so grateful that we just bet on ourselves. And you're right. We did get backed into a corner where it just felt like, okay, let's just give it our all. Let's just try weird things. And then that became, once we started getting over and we had a lot of momentum, that became the thing every week where we were excited to, okay, what new thing from pop culture can we bring in that will pop people? And for me, the exciting thing for me is, how can I be a little bit more lewd every week? What else can I hump this week? But like that was the test. Is I would come up like, how can I push my toe across the line a little bit more? Because like no one was yelling at me. No one was saying, that's too much. And we were just having so much fun. And then looking out at the crowd and they were getting with it. And like 2015 was such a magical year into 2016. Because it just felt like we were throwing things at the wall and they were all sticking. Hey, this is me being Woods. I played a trombone in high school. What if we brought that out in New York and did this New York parody after SummerSlam? We did it and it works. And so it just became so much fun.
Okay, so two things there. Number one, have you ever seen the movie Airheads?
It's one of those like cult classics that I have not gotten to that I'm embarrassed I haven't watched.
Because there is a scene at the very end where Steve Buscemi is playing guitar in his band, and like everybody, they're in a prison performing for the prisoners, and everybody's rocking out and everybody's having a good time, and Steve Buscemi just starts humping the guitar, and like everybody's rocking out, but then there's two guys in the audience are looking at Steve like, what are you doing? And he just has to kind of chill out a little bit. And I feel like that's the line that you were constantly walking. But I'm so glad that you brought up the trombone, because in my mind's eye, and tell me if I'm remembering this incorrectly, I kind of feel like the trombone was what really completely turned you guys babyface, where it was like there's no, like you've gotten to the point of, because you're right, the oblivious thing was what it was. And I think that the oblivious, that word oblivious followed the New Day again throughout the whole run, even as baby faces, because it is an oblivious quality to think, you know what's cool? Wearing unicorn horns. We'll all wear unicorn horns and be threatening professional wrestlers. And everybody will think we're awesome. But by then, it's almost like Danhausen today. Right. By then, we had all bought into the New Day so much that we were like, not only is that cool, we need to also buy unicorn horns because they're right. It is cool. But I feel like once Francesco was out there, it was like we can't even pretend to boo this act.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit before that because I remember I'm pretty sure the debut of the trombone was after SummerSlam,
like the night after.
Yeah,
right?
and I remember I could barely. I don't know if I slept much at all because I was buzzing because that felt like not that we had an I made it moment, but if we were to pick one, I felt like that moment at Barclays. Winning the titles, starting that 483-day run in that 4-way tag. Brooklyn was so behind us that there's a moment we win the titles and I think I'm running around Kofi. He's like doing something on his back. It's just ridiculous. But this moment of pure joy where I almost stopped performing and it felt like football, like celebrating a big win where you almost forget this is performance and you're just, we really won and we're really the best and people really love us. That was that moment for us, but it was around the trombone time too. But no, man, it was. I think for us, it's about full commitment, and one of the reasons I love what Danhausen is doing is because he fully commits. He's all in on the bit, and I think for us, we were all the same. We lived it, and I think when you can kind of remove the veneer of performance, when I watch Danhausen, I know I'm watching a show. But sometimes I don't, that's
there's
who
no
he
separation.
Is. Yeah, and I think
he's like the most over the top. Like, I mean, and it's the same thing, right?
Right.
That guy, Ettore, does not walk around with a unicorn horn on his head. I think he might though. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you're watching.
Yeah, and that's where we were. We were just at that point, but we were having so much fun, and we believed so much, and we were so committed to us. Even when things were tough in 2014, trying to get the idea off the ground, it was instead of pushing us away from each other when we were getting criticism, when people were laughing at us backstage, when we were told you guys are wasting your time, it brought us together. So we were all so bonded and so in it together that I can't let Woods down by half-assing. I can't let Kofi down. I have to fully commit to it. So I think we were all just so immersed in the gimmick and loving it that we had no other choice. And I think when you have that commitment and also just it was clear that we were all having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's real. And I just think that for that's the secret, I think, for so much of entertainment. When I watch, I'm not even a big basketball fan. I would DVR Inside the NBA just to watch Chuck and Shaq.
It's my favorite show on television.
It's amazing because it really feels like you're getting an inside look on Friends.
Chuck, what were they wearing, Chuck? What were those ladies wearing in San Antonio, Chuck? What kind of underwear? They got Victoria's Secret on, Chuck?
He just wants him to say bloomers. He just wants him to say it.
But no, there's so much magic to that. When you can tell people are having the time of their lives and they love each other, there's something to it, man.
There absolutely is, and it's contagious, and you want more of it. You start, developing those almost like a parasocial relationship with it because you're like, that's the joy. And honestly, professional wrestling is the best place for it.
Yep.
Because in our hearts, I hope, and sometimes you look at the internet too much and you go, maybe that joy is gone, but we all love wrestling. That's the only reason to be a part of this ridiculous world or to watch. And when I say be a part of this ridiculous world, it includes be a fan of it because there is this thing that we're like, we love this. So to see that joy come back, I think it is contagious. And I also, think to go back and think about all the ideas that I'm sure you guys were pitching that no one was listening to. And you're sitting there going I don't even think the ideas are getting to the people who would say yes or no. And to say that the boys back in the back are laughing at you guys for how hard you're trying to go from there to the point that not only are you able to get a cereal made out of this ridiculous Bootios concept, but then they make a giant Bootios box at WrestleMania. And by the way, if you go through the offices in Stamford, you see the people who have their Bootios on their desks because they love that moment so much. Is there anything in you that goes oh my God, it's all happening, we have to protect this? Or do you just ride this wave when you look at this giant box of Bootios collapse on a WrestleMania stage?
I don't think it was coming from a point of protection. I think we all did a great job. At least I'll speak for myself. I tried my best to be present and enjoy it. And I feel like I really did a great job of of being there. So I wasn't really worried so much about, oh, we need to hold on to things and protect it. It's always, there's so many shows. And I think we often think, as fans, we think of WrestleMania as this crowning achievement and these big moments. But for us as performers, we have WrestleMania and we're building to that. You got a show the next day.
Yeah.
And, when we're shooting SmackDown at the time on Tuesdays, we'd have a show the next day, go home for a day and a half, and it's the next day. So there's no time, I feel like, you do your best to enjoy it, celebrate with family, friends, but it's on to the next one. And it's always, what's the next idea? What's the next feud? What else are we pitching? So we had this propulsive momentum of always, here's the next thing we're eyeing, here's the next team we wanted to work with. So yeah, for us, we did our best to sit in it, but also know it's about propelling it forward to keep this thing riding.
What is the conversation that you guys had? Did it ever occur to you guys that you're looking and going like, Mattel, the biggest toy company there is, they've made all the greatest toys in the world, are putting out a box set of our action figures that say Bootios on it? Do they understand contextually what Bootios and eating and the booty, what this is all referring, what this could draw a comparison to?
Well, what's even worse than the Bootios is, I think, not our first merch shirt. There's one, I actually haven't seen it in the wild in a long time, but it's a blind unicorn. So it's a unicorn with sunglasses and the little
with it was the turquoise shirt, right?
Yeah, I think it was turquoise. Yes. I can't remember exactly what it means. It's a lewd sex reference. And you go on Urban Dictionary.
Hit her with the blonde unicorn.
Yeah, that's one of those, yes. And Woods reveled so much in being able to get that across. And like little kids are wearing these shirts. And but for us, like that became the thing too, is what reference can we sneak in? Like the Bootios thing is about eating ass. That's what it's about.
That's of course,
and it's obvious to all of us, but somehow we're able to get away with it. I actually wish instead of getting like the Lucky Charm style, I really wanted the little like puckered buttholes. That's why I was really hoping that we could get the cereal to look like it's just a tight anus.
Right. I mean, but that's such a great part of it too, and that's when I feel like that you've done it right. When what you're getting off on is like the little scams, right? Can you believe we got him to do this?
Right, and then several years ago, then having Mia Khalifa pull out her box of Bootios and talk about it. I think it's real. Someone sent, God rest his soul, I think DMX. There's a picture of DMX holding a box of Bootios. I thought it was Photoshop, but so many people kept sending it to me. I thought it was real. There's so many people.
I hope it's real. Just the idea of him. Bootios. Now let's pray.
But no, that it became so much fun. Actually, there was another thing we shot. So we wanted to shoot like a whimsical Saturday morning style cereal commercial, and we tried doing something on our phones. And we had actually little Brody, who is now not so little. Yeah. At the time, I think Amanda was backstage, and she let us use Brody for this thing. And I forgot the premise. But it was the three of us dressed up as moms. So we had just really terrible, like we applied our lipstick terribly. We wore like long like muumuus and
Larry Johnson style. Larry
exactly.
Grandmama Johnson.
And we tried to do something that was like kind of felt I don't want to say creepy, but a little like off-putting, but still kind of in that Saturday morning cartoon
right, just
vein.
Something that a little unsettling.
Right, and then we shot it, and then we looked at it, and look, we put out a lot of things that are weird, bizarre. We looked at it, and we said, we can't release this. This is weird and bad. Yeah, it was too much.
Bad.
It was too much. But no, that was such a time, man. And then we got like once that happened, we tried to do New Day ice cream, but that was shot down. So we just got in that lane, and it just became like once you have a box of cereal called Bootios that is actually can be purchased, it just feels like anything is on the table now.
Yeah, and also for the rest of your life, it's all gravy after that.
Right.
We did that.
I've
That's
done it
the
all.
accomplishment.
Exactly.
That's the accomplishment. Was there a moment there that you like? Could you feel a time when Vince liked you as an individual? Was like, okay, I get Big E now.
I think he liked me before that, because actually at one point the rumor I was getting from one of the writers was, and they definitely made the right decision, but at the time I was told there was kind of a choice between, this is around 2013, it was kind of Roman or me as far as the next young guy they really wanted to push. And it's very clear Roman was the right choice. But at one point, you know, I remember I did come up in a singlet, but Vince wanted me to move to the Taz cut. There was a while, for several months as a heel, where my ass was just out. And it's a lot of ass. My lady loves it, so that's great. But having the Taz cut, if you're gonna have that tight cut as opposed to having the cheeks completely covered, so because Vince he likes big muscular guys.
Sure.
And he liked the big legs I had. He's like, oh, you got big legs, you know, you want to show them.
It's impressive.
So I had to go to the Taz cut for a while. And I would just spend so much time digging this wedgie out. And you can't take a guy seriously, you know, as he's, you know, digging out of his butt crack. But people will still at me and send me that. There's one picture that was taken. I forgot who I was wrestling. But it's you see the voluptuousness, the fullness of the cheeks just there. And then I think, was it Alex Riley one time called me, he made this reference as if I was like a you know, the bottle girls? You know, like I was wearing one of those bottle, and I was like, I got to get out of this. So eventually,
it started to look a little more like hot pants.
Yeah,
you don't want to wear.
Yeah. That's not what the message I was trying to send then. But maybe that would have fit more in the New Day.
The New Day would have
my ass is out today, guys. Take a look.
You know what that means?
Right.
I'm feeling dangerous.
Yeah. But at the time, I was trying to be taken seriously. But no, there was a moment where I felt like Vince was behind me. But oftentimes, you know, he would often get tired of certain things or bored of certain toys, and he moves on to the next one. But yeah, so there was, but I felt like, you know, probably cooled on me for a little bit. But then I think when the New Day really, I think we made them laugh. I think we were entertaining. So then we got kind of back in the good graces again. So yeah.
What was Gorilla position like when you'd be back there shouting out a town's name? Oh, and did it become so regular that everybody was just sitting at their computers like he's gonna do his thing?
It was fun, man. It felt like not only did we have the people out there around the ring in attendance in the palm of our hands, but oftentimes it felt like we had like backstage in the palm of our hands, because I would start doing like I love Spider Rod what's his
Rod Zapata?
Rod Zapata.
Yeah.
So I've known Spider since the start of my career. He was in FCW. So if he's back there, oftentimes the refs are there like loaded in Gorilla as they're waiting for the next match. So oftentimes I would do the intro like an inch from his face, or I would just mess with people or gyrate. We would have we didn't just like, okay, we're gonna be serious guys until it's time to have fun. We had fun from arrival. That was who we were. So we took that and we knew like, okay, Gorilla, we got to turn it up even more. So we would have so much fun just interacting with people back. I remember like Stephanie, oftentimes you just look over as we're doing the intro or getting ready or doing our foolishness, and she's got a big smile on our face. So that became our thing, is like, we just love bringing that joy, bringing that silliness to everyone, to people backstage, to coworkers, to fans. So yeah, man, I never felt like it got to a point, especially when we were still silly, kind of, you know, things got a little bit more serious, like Kofi Mania, and then afterwards I started doing my single stuff. But really from 2015 up until that point, early 2019, it never felt, at least in my estimation, I don't think it really got to a point where people were kind of like, there's just New Day doing their thing, because we always try to make we didn't try to have a stock formula. Okay, I'm doing the intro, but you don't know what kind of frivolity or silliness or goofiness we're going to get. We're always going to try to come up with something imaginative to get you this time.
Yeah, I know. I remember seeing you guys at live events, and while the other teams enter, like Sheamus's entrance would be on. So the eyes are on Sheamus, but if you look back in the ring and you guys were introduced first and all the lights were out, you guys each had your own routine that you were doing to Sheamus's music. Yours very hip heavy.
That's right.
Usually,
yes.
You know, and like Woods was sitting there like beating his chest like crazy.
Yeah, you know what? You just triggered a memory too, because at the time there was, I think this was around the time we were working Sheamus. He would have the music would start. And then I think he had the spotlight at the time,
yes.
And he'd have the arms extended in like the Celtic cross. But Kofi, which would always pop me in Woods, Kofi would storm around like he's Sheamus, and then he'd do the arms out, and in his high pitched voice he'd yell, "Fella!" And every time he would get. So we'd be doing that. Sometimes we'd all.
By the way, Sheamus has to stay in character. Right, while he knows this silliness is going on behind him.
And then there's a moment where like maybe if there's like an instrumental that we're jamming out to, like Woods is pretending to play or guitar, I'm on the drums, Kofi's doing something else. And then when we started doing pancakes, well, now we got pancakes Kofi's got a heck of an arm. He should get into like competitive frisbee or something because he would from the ring, he'd be just launching them at Sheamus. There was one time, in fact, Sheamus and I, there was not that there was tension per se, but early Sheamus, we weren't as cool. Now we're all cool. We worked with each other so often that Sheamus and I would text, "I love you, man," all the time. Great dude. But at the time, like Sheamus was like trying to be very serious. And I remember one time Kofi from maybe 30, 40 yards out beamed him in the head. He was so pissed, storms to the ring, starts to almost attack me. Like gets in my, like I did it. I didn't do it. So I had to like double leg him because, I didn't use my amateur wrestling background, state champion back in the day, to neutralize him. And then we kind of pull apart, start the match. You just see him in the corner just fuming. But we would
because that's the other thing about the New Day is Kofi will do something like that, but because there's three of you and you're always in lockstep, you look up and not only do you see the guy that did it, you see his two goofy friends laughing at you, and you're even more angry.
Exactly. So then I would get the blame for it. So yeah, once we added the pancakes too, then we were doing, we really got to mess with fans. Kofi would just try to launch them at people as well. So, but I think, when you come to, especially a live event, when you come to a house show, house shows that was our jam, man. It's like, okay, we got to do TVs. That's where we make our money. That's really the crux of our business. But house shows are where we get to work on our craft, where we get to have fun with fans. Those restrictions as far as times, as far as what we can and can't do with fans and interaction, they're out the window. So we were always like, man, I want these fans to leave just like New Day. I don't know what I just saw, but that was weird. That was bizarre, but it was fun. So we always did our best to interact with people in house shows.
Could you have possibly imagined when you guys got together to do the podcast that you and professing your love for Goldberg and big meaty men slapping meat would take on the life, not only take on the life that it did in the sense that clip has been viewed so much and I think it goes beyond professional wrestling because, again, you're just watching three guys with such pure and utter joy that even if you don't understand the reference or why this giant man is talking about slapping meat, it's so funny. But also the fact that meat gets chanted at not only like at other promotions is 100% because of that podcast clip. You could not have imagined the life that would have taken.
At all. It's insane. And mind you, this is pre-pandemic. This is, I think, 2019, I think, is when we did this. It is 7 years later, and it's still, I get DMs. So I'm on Cameo now, raising money for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So I'll do cameos now, and I'll get people who will reference the clip all the time, people who talk about how much joy it brings them. I never would have imagined this moment of silliness is something that connected so much with people, but I love it. And I love that this is kind of anytime, whether it's the indies, whether it's AEW, anytime there's two big men, three big men in a ring, I know Big E would love this match. and for me, look, if that is my lasting legacy on this industry, I am very proud of that.
Did you feel like Kofi Mania, like Kofi getting crowned champion? Because I know everybody remembers the moment, but the build was also so special because it was completely organic. Like there was no way you can convince me that going into that calendar year, they were like, and then we'll go with Kofi and he'll go. Like, building up to the Elimination Chamber. It was like one of those things where it's like, oh, is Kofi, is this happening right now? Is Kofi the guy? And I think up until WrestleMania night, if that momentum hadn't continued to build, there was a Bryan retaining the championship was not only a very real possibility, but would have made sense if that feeling wasn't there. Did you feel like that moment, not only was so important for so many different reasons, so important for Kofi as an individual, did you feel like it was a culmination of like, look at what the New Day did? This is us?
I don't want to put it that way because that was Kofi's moment that was earned, and I think a lot of that is because of the way that Kofi always carries himself.
Yeah.
As a true professional, he is always going to be on time. He is always going to deliver. He is always going to be a professional. He is always going to be kind. He is just like the consummate professional and a guy who waited 11 years before he had his first world title match, not first world championship, but first opportunity was 11 years later. So I think Woods and I were very grateful to be a part of that ride, and getting to do that hour gauntlet that we got to do, the tag team gauntlet, was one of the coolest things. And I love that people still reference the moment where the Usos come out and they forfeit. Like that whole run, and it was one of the more unique runs too, because not to take a shot at anyone, but we would come to TV every week and like, oh, creative is great. We don't need to change anything. And this is one of the few times we're like, we love this build. We love the way this is structured. We don't need to change this plan. We don't need to go in and pitch to change it. But a lot of that, and you're spot on. That only happens because Mustafa Ali gets hurt. He had a legitimate concussion at the time, and he was supposed to get in. He was supposed to be in that opportunity. I think, was it the Chamber? Was the first?
Yes.
Okay, was it the Chamber? And then Kofi filled in, and then just organically got these
so
chants.
Incredible in the
yeah, and then had that great performance with Brian at the end, where I love that. Brian is such a man. He really has contributed so much to this industry, and not just as an in-ring performer, but I have to credit him too, because my solo run he was in creative at the time, when post-pandemic, when I think Woods was hurt at the time. He's the one who pushed for me to have a solo run. I ended up getting the IC title. I beat Sammy for the IC title on an episode that aired on Christmas. And then from that comes Money in the Bank, comes the world title. So that's Brian. But Brian also...
And isn't it crazy that you wrestled him in your first main roster match at WrestleMania?
So weirdly full circle.
Yeah.
But Brian is also the reason he pushed for, once Kofi was getting that momentum, he's the one who pushed for it, because I believe the plan was Brian and KO. Kevin was supposed to wrestle Brian at Mania. But because of Mustafa's injury, Kofi fills in, but has this undeniable just momentum. And you know how it is though, but so often in our industry, even if someone has the hot hand with the crowd, it doesn't mean the office listens. Oftentimes it's just like, we'll just put them on ice, they'll forget about them, and we'll move on. But if it wasn't for Brian pushing for that moment, if it wasn't for Kevin being okay with bowing out and saying like, this is Kofi's time, I don't think any of it happens. But I love, to me, the moments where the fans can almost hijack the show and the creative in a positive way. Those are, to me, the best moments in wrestling. And I think winning a world title at WrestleMania is incredible, but also it's who you won it from. And winning it from a legend like Brian, I think, made that moment so much more special. And then, Rowan's ringside. Rowan and I used to travel in Rowan's van when he had no AC and FCW. We were making $500 a week. That's my guy. We've stayed at his house, and to have that moment at WrestleMania with him, and I'm not really, we're on the outside. It's not my moment, but just to be there for that. And I love that fans still talk about how emotional that moment was. That video of Shad and MVP, and these are two men who've been in the business for a long time. It's very easy to get jaded, but to be so moved where they're crying and hugging, that's how much that moment meant to so many people. That's the beauty of our business. Look, we make you sit through a lot of bad. You gotta sit through a lot of bad shows, a lot of boring shows. But when we do things right, when we tell great stories and they unfold the right way, there's nothing like it.
When you think about that moment, it's like culturally how much it meant to an entire population, but also as a wrestling fan who loved New Day, how much it would mean to them, as people who have been watching Kofi Kingston and the career that he's had, how much it would mean to them. And there was almost this like feeling, I mean, it goes levels and levels and levels. And there was this feeling of, and I think it's because of what you just said, of what you have to sit through, of we want this so bad. And I remember having a conversation with a significant wrestling legend that was like, he's not winning that title tomorrow. The old man knows how bad they want it, and that's why he won't do it. And there was a lot of people going like, oh, we want it to.
I was worried.
You were? Up until the last minute?
I didn't want to know. I wanted to go in as a fan. But you get to a certain point where you have, okay, there's certain things. So we come out with the T-shirts, we present the new title. So there's certain things that, okay, we do eventually get clued in on. But up until that day, we didn't know. And I know, and whoever that old timer was, he's so right. Because so often there's something about, and I do think creatively, sometimes it can be the right choice to pull something away. But that was not the right choice then.
Yeah.
I think it would have left a very sour taste in people's mouths, and not in a way that, okay, Kofi gets this disappointment here, but he's able to climb back. I don't know if there's any climbing back, and I don't know if it feels the same. It culminating at WrestleMania with Bryan, that was the right spot, it was the right time. But the way everything unfolded, Vince coming out and doing the B+ player thing, the same thing he did with Bryan that like paralleled, hey, you're not really worthy of the spot and opportunity.
And it really was amazing too that Bryan is the type of performer that could pull off being a heel so well that everybody forgot that 5 years ago it was him. Not one person was sitting there going like, no. That was like, Bryan was supposed to have this whole, like, he was gone, like not long after he won that title. He never got the run. He got the moment, he didn't get the run. And it would have been easy. And maybe there are performers that might have been a little bit more selfish that would have allowed people to remember that because they want to feel that too. It would have been easy for people to be like, but no. Bryan's my guy. Like, you can't, like, he's not the right guy. He's so good at being that villain that he didn't allow, the fact that it was him didn't distract for a second. Nobody remembered the irony of what was happening.
No, you're spot on. And remember, he was doing the sustainable title too,
of course,
at the time, which should be something we should all celebrate. Right?
That it made him a heel, and he pulled it off, and he really believes it in his soul.
But he did it. I think he did it in an earnest way, but still was able to remain very much a heel. But to me, I think as far as really understanding our business, it's not just about the moves and the sequences and knowing how to put on a great match. He knows how to do that, but like his mastery of his understanding of storytelling, of how to set all these beats up, he gets it in such a tremendous way. And man, the industry would be so lacking and so without him.
When you go on that run, the Intercontinental Championship, the Money in the Bank, like, were you ready to be a singles guy at that point when you branched off of the New Day? And I also think the New Day was really so great because you all maintained an individuality throughout. So we knew, I mean, even going into the moves that we were just talking about, like you knew who Big E was and who Xavier Woods was and who Kofi Kingston was individually. Like there were different things that you liked about all three. Were you ready to go off and be a singles, or was that kind of a frightening thing?
I wouldn't say frightening, but I do remember there are a few times when I first started doing solo stuff where I felt like my safety blanket, my comfort was gone, because even just on the entrance of like wanting to feel that there's someone within arm's reach next to me, and it's like, oh, they're not there. And I think it's just, of course I had done that so much in my career of being on my own, but the solo run, I think, was either 2020. Yeah, 2020 was when the last solo run started. Yeah. But I had, even if I was doing singles matches, those guys were coming out with me from 24, like 6 years.
Yes.
Since I'd been out by myself, and it was very strange. So that took me some time of knowing, okay, I'm out here alone. And I think what also took some time is, how do I stay true to the New Day Big E, but still show an added layer or a different wrinkle? So trying to figure that out, because if there's a stark contrast of I'm just serious now, that doesn't gel with, and also it's like that New Day ride got me to here.
Yeah.
So to just dismiss it doesn't feel right. But also to still be as goofy, as silly, and to not have a mission, for me, it was very important to demonstrate, okay, why are you on the singles run? Just to be a guy on the roster? No, the singles run has to mean something. You have to go after titles. You have to want to climb the card. You have to want to show something here. So I tried my best to marry the two of, I am still the Big E that you know and love, this New Day version, but there has to be an added wrinkle of purpose. And that for me was the focus. And I was also, one thing that, sometimes I get some reference for, or people will mention me on social media for, is the conversation I had with The Miz on Talking Smack, which I miss so much. I wish
Especially that version of Talking Smack was so good for so many people.
It was good because we got to really peel back the layer and be a little bit more human. It was great. Obviously, people reference that moment with Miz and Ryan so often. That was so great for Miz. But I had this conversation with Miz where he was on Talking Smack, where he was, talking about the fact that I need to be serious.
Yeah,
you need to
I
fit a
remember
certain
that.
mold. And I really just wanted to make it clear, like, I want to sink or swim on my own merits. And I don't want to fit into anybody's box or any version of them. If at this point in my career, I've been wrestling for almost a decade then. If I don't know how to navigate my own character, if I don't know how to tell stories for myself, then I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to be in this spot. And I had no desire to fit a mold, because for me, that would be just stripping away the parts of me that made me different or unique. I didn't want to just be a cookie cutter champion. I wanted to do things my way. And I'm so grateful that I got to have that opportunity to navigate the singles run in the way that I felt was the right way. I didn't have anyone from the office telling me, no, stop doing this, stop wearing that. Man, I was, like it or not, and maybe it was the wrong decision, but I'm grateful looking back. As WWE champion, I was wearing Festivus gear. I was wearing and not like thinly veiled, very clear. I am celebrating but I just wanted to do things in a way that hadn't been done before. And I always try to encourage young wrestlers, whoever, anytime they ask me for advice or how anything you'd offer me, find a lane that is yours. Danhausen has created a unique lane that only he can fill. If you can find an avenue that no one else is doing, there are people who will be better talkers, better wrestlers, that can take elements of what I'm doing and do them much better. But I always thought, I don't know if anyone can do everything that I'm doing. Of being a powerhouse, being silly, being charismatic, doing promos on TV, doing media in the way I do it. So I really just wanted to be a one of one. That was always my focus. And I felt like I got to craft that.
Yeah. And I think what made that Talking Smack segment so strong too was that you kind of stepped up. You know what I'm saying? Like when Miz was like, this is what you have to do. And he got into his kind of combative Miz thing that he does sometimes, that you completely disagreed and stood completely on business. Like, who are you? And I think at one point you did the thing where you had your ankles up on the table.
I did,
And you had to put your ankles down so that you could explain to the Miz exactly what was going to happen and exactly why at this point in your career, nobody had any business telling you how to do what you do.
But you have to, if you ever want to be someone who's taken seriously, look, I'm all for, there are a lot of talent, young talent especially, who come up and they talk about, oh, I respect you so much. If they're in the ring with Becky, oh, you're the greatest of all time. Paying a certain amount of deference, I think, is good and okay. But I don't care how long The Miz has been here. It is important for me to demonstrate that I know who I am. I know what I want to do. I have a vision, and it's a sea of sharks especially at the top of guys who are pushing to be their very best, who are pushing for world championship moments and spots. And I can't come in acting like I'm the mid-card guy who is lucky to be here. I have to demonstrate that I belong here. I was the second ever NXT champion. And even if I have to fake it until I make it, I have to carry myself like I know what I'm doing, like I have a voice, I have a mission statement. Because if you get to that spot and you feel like you can be pushed and pulled in different directions and you're listening to too many voices, you're not going to have a clear vision, and audiences will not understand who you are and what your brand is, what your messaging is. So I knew at this stage, this might be my only opening to pursue a world championship or to try to become Mr. Money in the Bank. I have to have a voice, and I have to understand it. I also have to credit my creative partner now who's designed the New Day gear forever and ever, Johnny Davenport, and one of my best friends on planet Earth. When we first started that solo run, and we were thinking about, he was working on some merch with me, but we just sat down and he asked me, who are you and what do you want? And we really just investigated, how do we make this run different? And what is it, not just what is it you want for Big E for the next 6 months? Who are you as a person? Where are you at in life? What is it? So we one of the things we put on the shirt is think big. It's very simple, but it was this concept of just not seeing myself as this mid-card wrestler, and I've done some cool things with the New Day, and I'm in this box, and this is who I am, and I'm so grateful for that. But it's this idea of opening it up and dreaming more, thinking I can be so much more than what I once perceived myself to be. So that became a very real thing for me, not just in the ring and what I was trying to portray on WWE TV, but I started to gain my confidence now. Like when I became WWE champion, getting to be, I believe, the first WWE wrestler on The Breakfast Club, getting to do Big Noon Kickoff, getting to do the intros for Fury Wilder 3, and now really getting my confidence of I belong in these spaces. And as much as I love Kofi and Woods, I can do things on my own, and I have a voice, and I have things to say, and I deserve to be here. So that whole run for me, 2020 and beyond, was let me expand the idea of who I am and understand I can do big things in this world.
Did you believe it when you won the Money in the Bank briefcase? Did you hold on to it and go, oh my God, I think they're gonna put the title on me? Or did you go, this is a thing that happens, I could or I couldn't?
I don't believe anything is real in wrestling until it has actually happened 1, 2, 3 years over, because I've had matches. We had a mixed match challenge match. You know when we're doing the Facebook show. Yeah. And I was paired with Carmella, who was just amazing to work with. So it was me and Carmella against Asuka and Miz, and we had a finish. And mid-match, we're several minutes into this match. Mid-match, we get something from the ref that not only so Miz was supposed to be up on me, now it's Asuka up on Carmella mid-match. So not only do we have to figure out how to get the women in the ring near the end seamlessly, Asuka too, English is not her native language. She has to communicate with Carmella on the fly to somehow get to the finish. And we got it all. Those two were such pros. They made it all work, and we got there beautifully. But so I'm just used to things change in this business all the time. So you never know. So for me, the focus was not on, am I going to get this or not? It's just do my best. It's just worrying about week-to-week television.
Yes.
How do we make the next week entertaining? And honestly, like a lot of my time holding the briefcase was, which I was broke Corbin. And I that was the best version of Corbin. I love poor Corbin so much.
You talk about believability and like, you know what I mean? We all like mixing the character and the person.
Yep.
When Corbin starts telling those stories about fans, like after the show,
Giving him dollars.
giving him money. Like after the show, not in the eye, not walking to the ring, in the parking lot. After the show, here I brought some money for you. Like just lost in the world of make believe and reality, but in the best possible way. I mean, yeah, I can't, because that is one of those, and this goes back to the New Day, right? That is one of those like, well, you're going to be like bum ass broke Corbin. Like there are people who that would collapse them.
Yeah,
and then there are others that it's like, I'm going to commit, and it's going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen.
Right. Even like, you know, clearly balding, even letting the bag
in the worst. In the worst.
And then he would have like a ketchup stain on a crusty white shirt and then just continue to wear the shirt over and everyone wouldn't wash it. But he was pot committed, and that's what made that run so much fun. I don't even remember what the point was, but I just love Bum Corbin.
No, about you, but you had the Money in the Bank.
Yes,
the briefcase.
So I spent a lot of that time was just me kind of, and that's kind of, when you have the Money in the Bank, sometimes you're just kind of treading water until they figure out what's next. So a lot of that run was me spending time doing stuff with Corbin. Corbin stole the briefcase. We have a match, I think at Vegas. I think that was our first PLE back after the pandemic. We did a pre-show match where I beat him, take the briefcase back. But so you don't really know. And at the time, I don't think there had been that many unsuccessful cash-ins. I want to say Sandow might have been the only one, which is a shame. So that run for Sandow, I thought also was a lot of fun, and I love that the leather bound briefcase. Was so much fun. But I'm really grateful. So yeah, I got the call from the old man when I was asked to go to Raw. I was on SmackDown at the time, but I was asked to go to Raw, and I didn't know when I was there. It was in Boston, and then when I got the call, hey, it's happening tonight. We want you to put out this tweet. That was the moment where I thought, think I'm going to. It sounds good. We'll see if things change, but I think I'm going to be a world champion.
Wow. And then when you held that title, what does that feel like?
It is one of the best moments of my professional life, and I think what made it so special is just the fans, man. In wrestling, titles matter, reigns matter, but more than anything, I think creating those unforgettable special moments for fans where like I still get people who talk about like I was in the building then I love like those crowd shots where everyone gets their feet. the excitement when my music hits and I come down to face Bobby, when I officially hand the briefcase, like those moments, that for me is so special. There are a couple moments I do like. I pin Bobby. The 1, 2, 3 happens, and I remember being on one knee in this like deep lunge, and I start it. But in that moment, I felt like it's almost like I lose control of. I didn't even know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But it like that. It's like the performance stops, and it feels like it just feels very real.
Like when you guys won the tag titles at that SummerSlam.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I love those moments, and it's because of the fans. It's because they were so behind me and so into it. That's what made that moment so special for me. So I'm just really, really grateful that a guy like me got to hold the WWE Championship. There's so many incredible performers who never get to become world champions, and I got to do it. And I'm just so grateful for that.
And as yourself with Wale doing your music, like it just felt so authentic.
It
to
was
who you are.
Very much so. And the really cool thing was having Wale, a good friend of mine, one of my favorite rappers ever, to get him to do my music, and then coming out, when I had the IC title, I dropped it to Apollo in my hometown of Tampa, Raymond James Stadium. I played my senior year, my high school football all-star game was in that stadium. Like I'm born and raised in Tampa, drove by that stadium all the time. So to get to come back, this was our COVID too, so we're at 25% capacity. To be able to come back to Tampa with Wale playing me out was such a full circle moment. And that's why in many ways, when I broke my neck and it's clear that it's all over, it's like, man, you just not that long ago, you got to be world champion. Your good friend who's an incredible rapper played you out. If this was going to end now, like what a great way to wrap it up.
There's also this great moment. I think it might be the SmackDown after you won the title, where you came out on SmackDown. And this is like Roman Reigns is in the ring. And this is, bloodline Roman Reigns. This was like, and the bloodline's in there, and Roman is midway through just this epic run that was, that first bloodline run. And the seriousness that it put on the title that Roman had, and this is who the champion is and what the champion is. It's also, through the lens of the conversation that we're having, the idea that that's the guy that you started with in FCW, the idea that you just told me that, all those years ago, it's either Big E or Roman that's the next one. And like Roman is the universal champion, and he's doing things his way, and he's telling this bloodline story in a way that's never really, in my opinion, been told before, and is so unique to Roman. And then Big E's music plays, and you come out, and you are as Big E as you've ever been, and you're going around high-fiving everybody, and it's just a moment, because then it goes to Finn Balor and what's next for Roman, and it just lasts for a moment. But there is this moment where you and Roman are in the ring looking at each other, and to me, in hindsight now, it's just so cool how very different it is, where you guys came from, and also I think that you sharing just that moment with Roman Reigns in the ring lended the sort of seriousness that is like, yeah, Big E is the champion. That's why he's in there with the other champion, who is Roman Reigns. These are the two guys.
Yeah, and look, like Roman was clearly the guy, and it never felt like we were on an equal plane per se. But I'm really proud of I think those moments, and we did a lot of my world title run. Initially, we had a match that people still reference from time to time, but we had an amazing, I'm so proud of that triple threat we had with me, him, and Bobby. We did that around that time. And then we had a 6-man, actually I think it was the same night, with the Usos, with Bloodline, against Meek and Woods. And yeah, man, just getting to those little interactions, getting to wrestle at Survivor Series. Actually, that was the same day that I met Kieran Culkin backstage too.
Yeah.
And I love Succession.
Isn't it amazing what a wrestling fan he is?
He's a huge wrestling fan. In fact, he did this. Was it Graham Norton? I think he did his show.
Yeah. Yes.
And he talks about talking to his wife, and they're watching me wrestle. And she says something like, "Oh, that's right, love. Pull out your baps." And she was right because I pull out my, I pull the straps down, and I got a bulbous chest. And she mentioned something, but I love that. I'm a big Kieran Culkin fan.
Yeah.
And just that story I thought was really funny. But no, I think those interactions with Roman when he was just absolutely humming were a lot of fun. And maybe in many ways, I wish creatively we got to do a little bit more. And I'm not talking about like me winning, going over. That's not. I wish we got to do more 6-man stuff with the 3-on-3 stuff. I think it would have just been a lot of fun with our history with those guys.
And the Usos too.
I know.
Yeah.
But then too, the Hurt Business was around at the time too.
Of course.
And those guys kind of came back briefly when I was feuding with Bobby, and then that went away as well. So I was hoping to do, as much as I believe like a world champion, I love seeing world champions stand on their own. I don't want to always see them surrounded by other people, but I think there could have been a lot more fun we could have done with 6-mans and whatnot. But no, those interactions with Roman when he was really at the peak of his powers, they were a lot of fun.
When you go to the end of that title reign and it's day 1, which is the show, I mean, because it's so crazy because it does change everything. Like, who knows what the plan even was if not for the way things went, because after day 1 you go to obviously WrestleMania 38 and Roman beating Brock there and getting both titles, except Roman was facing Brock at day 1 for his title, and who knows what would have happened there. But then Roman gets sick, Brock gets put into the multi-man match with you, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, and people, and I as a fan, I'm going, you know what? I'm a smart fan. I know what they're thinking. That's smart. Because now Brock he doesn't have to lose. He can still be on the show and he doesn't have to lose. And they're like, no, that's half right.
Right. He's winning the title.
He ain't losing.
Right.
So, but to find out, I mean, and I remember thinking they're going like, oh, Brock won. You have to pin E? You got to pin the champion in that moment?
I too was of the same mindset, but ultimately I have never pitched to not lose. If anything, we have at times, because of the story, we have pitched to lose. But look, this is Brock Lesnar. What am I going to go in there and say, actually, no, I think I need to retain?
Course.
No, of course not. So more than anything, it's like, okay, this is what we're handed. This is the direction. So we'll make the best of it, because actually the plan was, what we were moving towards initially was, it was supposed to be me and Seth in a singles at day 1. I was going to drop the title anyway. So I was supposed to drop the title to Seth. We come back, and at Mania, we do it again. I regain the title. But
so it's gonna be you and Seth at Mania.
At Mania, that was what was originally. And things change all the time, so who knows what was meant. But that was kind of what we were
on
thinking.
January 1st. No, not even January 1st. I guess in December, maybe we'll go Seth and E for E to get the belt back at WrestleMania.
Well, I think by the time we got to December, it already started morphing, because it was me and Seth. Seth was named as the number 1 contender. I can't remember exactly when that was, but we had a lot of lead time before day 1 on January 1st. And so creative, the office was, okay, well, we need a filler program. So then KO got added. Then it became a 3-way thing for a little bit. Then Bobby needed something to do. Vince loves Bobby. So Bobby's inserted. So it was supposed to be a 4-way at day 1. Then Roman's sick. Now Brock's in. So this match that was supposed to be a singles, where I dropped the title at day 1, I regained it at WrestleMania. That it doesn't even look anything close to that. And by the time we get to WrestleMania, my neck gets broken. My career's over.
Right.
So there's that whole butterfly effect is kind of insane. And I don't mention any of this because it's woe is me. I should have gotten the WrestleMania spot. But it's so funny how life works. But I've also been on the other end of things too. Not even in wrestling, where there was me getting to Iowa is because there was a defensive lineman that left the program early. I was a senior when I was getting recruited. The only reason I even got on Iowa's radar is because the defensive backs coach at the time, Phil Parker, who's still there 20 plus years later, he's coming in to talk to my coach. And to talk to my coach, he has to come through the weight room. Me, I live in the weight room. And he sees me bench 315 for a set of 10. And he's like, who is this guy? I get to Iowa from there. And from Iowa, I knew a guy who knew a guy who knew JR when JR was still with the company at the time. That's how I got the opportunity with WWE. So I've been in the position before of happenstance, or someone is leaving something and they need someone to fill in. So I've been on the other end of things as well, where I was just in the right place at the right time. But things work out in that way. And, you know, in many ways, I am so grateful for the way things have unfolded, because I don't know if I end up having the time and the space to meet and fall in love with my lady.
Right.
And I'm so grateful for that. Even now, I think the tough thing, as much as I love wrestling and love my time in the ring, I don't think this door of getting to write a book, getting to be in your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, getting to do all these other things and whatnot, I don't really have that same time and opportunity. I don't know if I ever become a broadcaster, because my thought, if I'm still wrestling right now, probably think by the time I get to my mid-40s or so, I just pack it up. I'm done with wrestling. I move on. But this is a role that I'm really enjoying. Love getting to do Raw recap with you and Megan. It's a lot of fun. But I really, this is a job that, especially as someone who I had so many injuries, this is a job that doesn't, you know, beat up my body, that I can potentially do for the next 15 years or so. So in many ways, I think things unfolded in a way that all worked out for everyone. But it's just interesting how much one shift here or there, how much the landscape of things really changed.
And I'm sure it sucks in the moment,
Sure, of course.
you know, in that day or the next day or
Of course.
whatever. But then, you know, you kind of have the benefit of hindsight now and looking back and going, you know, based on where you're sitting, not literally in this basement, but generally speaking,
Yes.
everything works out.
But that's the wrestling business,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Like that's what it is. And if you get too hung up, just seen too many people allow the booking, allow the changes to kill their passion for it. You do your best. I tell people, oftentimes other wrestlers, learning the bumps, learning how to work, learning how to wrestle, in many ways, it takes a long time, but that's the easy part. Learning to navigate the politics, learning to navigate creative, all those things, that, especially when you start nearing the top of the card, when you're in that, there's so many more cooks in the kitchen, that's when things get tough. So for the most part, like it's finding that balance of being really passionate about knowing when to pitch, about pushing for more, but also understanding I just need to accept that this is the direction and I need to do my best with it. So I got to that point, and look, there is no shame in losing to Brock Lesnar. I'm in the ring with all those guys. Bobby Lashley, incredible professional wrestler.
Unbelievable.
KO.
I mean, forget about it.
Yeah, Seth.
Like
It-
literally only Hall of Famers.
Exactly. And there's no shame in dropping the title to any of those guys. And in many ways, look, if you were to make a list of all the WWE champions of all time and you split it in fourths of tiers, I'm in that lower quadrant. And that's okay. That is okay, because that list is so competitive. Was I close to being the greatest world champion ever? No, not even. The fact that I got that opportunity alone, I am so grateful for. Was I maybe potentially hoping for more opportunities and to prove myself more and maybe another crack at it? Sure. But instead of focusing on what was lost or what I didn't get, the focus is on, for me, what I did get. And I was given so much, and I was given so many opportunities, and I'm so grateful for that.
You've been really wonderful and understanding in how you talk about your injury, specifically about Ridge Holland and the fact that, like, clearly this was an accident and this is what happens in wrestling.
Right.
This is what you sign up for, and God forbid you could have been on the other end of it,
Right.
because that's how accidents work. They're accidents. What is it when you break your neck? Do you know you've broken your neck? Like, what is that? What is the feeling of immediately? Do you understand that you're injured? Like, what is it?
My dumbass thought I must have a contusion or a sprain of the neck of some
Sprain
sort.
of the neck.
This doesn't feel great. Well,
Doctor, I
surely
believe
not.
it's a sprain
I
of the
think
neck.
Yes, it's a sprain of the neck, actually. So in the moment, there's no pain. I immediately wiggle the fingers and toes.
Yep.
No nerve pain. I don't have a concussion at all. I never went out. It's in that moment of doing like the quick check-in with my body. Oh, I'm all good. But everyone gets there, the EMTs, the doctors, they all get there so quickly. I don't really have a chance to like walk it off and really see, am I okay? But no, I didn't think that at all, because I think when you break bone, I don't know if in every case, but if you break bone and there's nothing with the ligaments, nothing with tendons or nerves or anything at all, oftentimes like I didn't feel anything really, except the compression of falling and landing on my head. So no, I didn't think I broke my neck, and I definitely didn't think it was as dire as the doctors informed me when I got to the hospital. So I didn't think that much of it. I thought, okay, maybe this is just something I'll need a couple weeks, because I felt, okay, there's probably going to be some swelling and some soreness. maybe you just need a couple weeks. And I think I felt sore. So that was it. Like right after, it took us a little while for the inflammation to kind of build up, but I felt sore in the aftermath. But beyond that, it really wasn't that bad. And then it's once I got to the hospital and they really tell me how close I was to things being much, much worse. Oh, this could have been very dire.
Wow. Yeah. And that's, again, you just kind of have to take the word of the doctors for it because your body's not telling you
Exactly
how bad this is. That's amazing. Were you instantly of the mindset that you've been at where when they go, yeah, this is it, where you go, okay? Or did you have to take a day, a week to kind of let it settle? Or was it an instant like, okay, based on everything I've done, I'm okay?
Yeah, it was that reaction of I'm okay. I didn't immediately close the door to I will never wrestle again, but it was a jar. The door was just barely a jar. There's a little sliver of light. But no, I was in that moment. I was good, and again, that is truly a credit to meditation, to mindfulness, because in that moment, I didn't even have. I feel like I didn't even have the chance to start thinking, "What was me? What happened? What am I gonna do?" It was, this could have been so bad.
Yeah.
This could have been so bad, and it's not. And I am here, and I have support. I'm not going to be racked with medical bills. I have everything I need to live my life normally. That for me was the focus. So there was never a moment of real dread or anything. So I just knew like, okay, this is what it could have been, and it's not that at all. I'm very, very grateful.
I love that you love finding this new passion for broadcasting. Number one, I think you've come along at a great time because I feel like there is sort of like a freedom afforded to being like, okay, let's see what your voice is. I think that I feel like you're doing it more as a tour than Big E. You know what I mean? You're now being a human being because you've done you could be a human being here. But I think you have found, and you started doing the podcast with us very early on into the podcast, but also of course doing the pre-shows and the post-shows and everything. But I feel like you found this really great balance of figuring out, and it hasn't really been done a lot before, of figuring out how to walk the line between we're still storytelling and kayfabe, quote unquote, is not broken. But I'm going to talk about this like a human, and maybe I'm not going to pull back the curtain, but we'll open it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like talking about it, it's one thing to talk about, and it's complicated, right?
It is.
Because that's announcing, right? And to talk about it from the perspective of a wrestler in character versus out of character, and walking that line of being like, okay, I can tell the story of what it is like to be WWE champion from a behind the scenes and the pressure that it puts on a champion, and then and that's real life, and then mold it into the story. I think you've done a really good job of finding that balance so that it feels like when you say something, it's worth listening to because it's not just a scripted story statement.
Yeah, and like not to take a shot at anyone, but I think a lot of the pre-shows that we did prior to this new iteration, I didn't love because it did feel very much like people were in character solidly and weren't speaking as real humans. So I think, and you're right, it is tough to ride this balance of we have to protect the business, we have to protect these stories, but we also have a relationship with the audience where when they listen to us speak, I want them to feel like there is some integrity in what they're being told, and that it is not just all story or all fabricated, but we are speaking to the human experience of what it's like to be in the ring and to navigate a career. And I think, okay, what is my role here, and how can I differentiate myself from the rest of these extraordinarily talented broadcasters that I sit with? And, Wade's a former wrestler. Cole's done some wrestling himself, but, it's a little sketchy. But I think I can speak a little bit more to, I've been in the ring more recently than the rest of the panel. Although Rosenberg's 24/7 title, I can't remember the timing of that. Yeah. But so I really do my best. I want when I have something to say, I would like it to have some sense of value for our audience, that we're able to give them some piece of information that maybe they weren't aware of, or maybe some insight into talent's perspective. And look, that isn't always the case. It's not always possible, but I guess I think about what I would want to hear if I was listening to a wrestling pre-show or post-show. And to me, the human element is so much more interesting. I like investigating people's whys and what their motives are. I think is what is more interesting. Okay, everyone wants to be the best, but why is it that you want to be the best? Is it because you're trying to fill some hole or void in yourself?
Right.
Is it because you're trying to earn a certain amount of money to get to a point of financial stability? Like, what is your motivating factor? And I love that. To me, Gunther's motivating factor is quite different from Jay's and Cody's. And I think once we can address that aspect of these performers, that for me, that's where the real juice is.
When the New Day turned on you, when they turned heel, first of all, again, it makes it difficult as an announcer because that's something you have to carry with you without, going too heavy into the story of it. But also, were you conscious of the fact that, look, I'm not coming back. It is going to start the rumors, and people could potentially be disappointed that it is not building to a Big E comeback.
And I expressed, I think, some of those, not in a, hey, we shouldn't do this way, but I wanted to express to the writers, to everyone involved with the story, like we all know. And there was no, I think a lot of the discourse I saw was, oh, this petered out because Big E couldn't eventually get cleared. That was never a thing that we were waiting for or that was on the table. It was, we want to do this heel turn. And there, at some point, there was some, I think they pitched to do some physicality on Jay. That was off the table. Then it was on R-Truth because he's beloved. That was off the table. Okay, I'm not cleared. So how do we do a heel turn with no physicality? And I always try to be very cognizant of the fact that there is no payback on me or with me or involving me. There's nothing with me. So I thought, if anything, maybe I could briefly manage a certain team. I give my cosign to a certain team so that I'm able to kind of pass the baton off to someone so this can go somewhere. So more than anything, like I had to work from the understanding that this truly is not my story. But if I can help the boys to get to where they need to go, and they were very much like, we need to be heels. And I thought they've been baby faces for so long. They needed something different. Unfortunately, I just don't think the follow-up was there. They were getting booed out of the building for weeks and weeks, but then that kind of dissipated. And oftentimes I would remember, I'd go online and I would see they're cutting promos during the Netflix break. Like if you don't have that, if you have that ad tier where it's like, then you get to see it, but I don't. I'm cheap. I'm not paying for all that. So I'm missing that. So for me, it's like they're just off TV for weeks and weeks. So a lot of that really petered out. I pitched like something where where maybe Kofi were to land on the on the barricade, and like maybe me and Kristen, because they started involving her, like, oh, you left to go hang out with your girl. Where maybe we're wearing hats and they're low, we take them off and I pull Kofi's leg and he's down. So maybe something to keep that momentum going. But ultimately the story was not with me, and I think that was a bit of the tricky part, is how do we then get them into a story that involved another team where that team has some momentum. And I thought me managing or just finding a way to align myself with that team would be a way to kind of continue the story on. But unfortunately, things didn't really go that route. I was really, really proud of the turn itself. I thought was really unique and interesting. And the boys, it's such that argument where the boys, I think a week prior, where they lose the match. I forgot who they're in the ring with, and they walk to the back and they're arguing, and they continue their argument in the back. And they say, for me, I think it connects to a very real thing of, this is your family member or your longtime best friend, and it's like they finally say the things that they've been holding on to forever. They love you and whatnot, but now in this heat of passion or anger or frustration, now, and it's like it betrays all those years, because did you always think of me this way? Did you always think of me as the guy who wasn't good enough to beat Brock? So, and I love that idea of, oh, were you really my brother all along?
And I'll tell you, from a fan perspective, it's like we've been watching the New Day just be joyful for so long. And there's this moment where it's almost like soul crushing, where you're like, oh no, they are just like us. Like, oh no, these relationships this isn't magical. This is just a relationship, and they do have resentments. And
those are my favorite things in wrestling, is when you can evoke very real feelings and conversations that are mirrored in the real world, that people can say like, I get that. I've been there before. I understand that feeling. I understand that relationship dynamic. That I really love. And I think they did such a great job of setting that table. And then the payoff with the heel turn, I thought worked so well. And
because of Kofi.
Yes.
Because Kofi took, because you could tell Woods was going there, but you thought it was going to break down into Woods versus Kofi.
Right.
And when Kofi turns around and he goes, yeah, E, and you're like, at 2,
right?
No,
At 2, Brute.
no.
Because he's the guy who has always carried himself with so much class, and we always joke, it's like, no, Woods is the piece of shit. Like we expect that from him. But Kofi, we hold him up here.
Yes.
And honestly, in the group, we've always kind of he's our brother, but we hold him with that esteem, you know?
Right.
He's such a great guy. And when it's like, no, he's capable of being dragged down into the muck like the rest of us scumbags.
Yeah.
That I thought was really telling.
Yeah. I mean, is it at all strange knowing that you're working in the WWE at a time when Woods and Kofi are not? I would imagine not as strange as it would have been, maybe, because you're obviously not on the road together. Then, you know, you're not wrestling. You're in 2 completely separate spaces. But just the idea of, those guys aren't here anymore.
It definitely would have been a lot more stark if I was still wrestling.
Yeah.
It's different, but honestly, besides Mania, those guys weren't working a ton of PLEs anyways. So
you didn't.
We didn't really interact that much, and it was so rare to see them on the road. So it wasn't as shocking to the system as it would have been if we were still all in it, especially if we're on the same brand, still together. But it is having to now navigate those conversations when people ask how they're doing, or that part is different. And we've been in the same company together for Woods was the latest to join, and he joined the company in 2010. You know, we've all been in the same company for a very long time, and now those guys aren't. So we just had a lot of conversations about what's next for them. I think the great thing is they have been married to the road for so long, but now they're getting to spend more time with their family. They're getting to enjoy life a bit more. They're getting some time to figure out what's next. You know, Woods is going to be 40 this year. Kofi's 40, about to be 45, I think, around 45. So yeah, now it's they have a moment to reset, and it's hard when you're on this hamster wheel of wrestling every week, doing all these shows. You don't really have a lot of downtime to sit and think, what do I really want? Because what you want at 40 is often very different from what you want at, 22, 23. I got signed at 23. Sure. Me at 23 I'm very different at 40, in comparison. So now I think in many ways it's this reassessment of what is it you want out of career, out of life? What schedule do you want? Do you want to slow down? Do you want to speed up? So those guys are in that position. But I guess the weirdest part for me at work is now just kind of navigating. People oftentimes, whether it's fans, whether it's other coworkers, they want to know how those guys are. They want to know what's next. So now I don't want to speak on behalf of them. I don't want to. I want them to be able to tell their story. So navigating just life changing is just a little bit different.
You really punt Hornswoggle?
It was more of a Spartan kick, honestly. It was a push kick. I'm telling you, Horns. If you know, I love Dylan.
Dylan. And I only asked because he sat in the chair and said, and he, by the way, took ownership of I took pleasure in driving Big E, and it's not the first person or the last person I did it to, driving him crazy to the point that he had no recourse.
And this is not healed meditative me. This is still me.
Oh my God!
Trying to keep everything that's bubbling under wraps. I'm doing my best. I am here. And when he kept prodding and prodding and prodding, there was one day I forgot. It was, I want to say, somewhere in Texas. I remember. I just thought I can't. To the point, I think I texted the boys at one point, we're gonna have to make a decision. It's either Swoggle rides with us or I ride alone. It was that point where I was like, I'm done with this.
I can't.
And because I'm not trying to fight Michael. That's not, especially Dylan. What do I look like? That's a bad look.
Your name is literally Big E. His name was Little Bastard.
Right.
It's right.
But I just decided on that. I had so much pent up rage. I decided this is the day, and I thought about it too. It was premeditated as well. I let the boys. We all walked out. I was driving that day, and I had enough of his needling. I had enough of him just I was like, all right, this is the day. So I let everyone get their bags. I think the boys walked ahead. Dylan was a little bit behind, and I lagged behind a little bit too. And I lined him up like I was tracking him. And
Did you tell him I'm gonna kick him?
No, I didn't. I told anyone. I just kept playing to myself.
Okay.
And I lined him up. And I think there was a bit of a walkway. I want to say it had a turn. And I waited for the turn to happen so I had some momentum. And after the turn, there was still like a little bit of distance to the door. And I said, okay, this is it. And I didn't sprint, but I built it up a little bit, cocked back the leg, and there was the push kick. And he flew. He flew. And I think I damaged his laptop as well because he's wearing his backpack.
Right.
And it was
he said that the weight of the backpack helped accelerate, unfortunately.
And now looking back, am I proud of that moment? Absolutely not. I should have been able to manage my emotions better. Should have had a conversation. But in the moment, I thought he deserved it. And,
right.
That was kind of the end at the time.
And I mean, it's not to say, could you have handled it better? Maybe, but did he deserve it is a different question.
He did deserve it.
He did deserve it.
I should have been the bigger man, but did he warrant it? Yes.
He won, yeah. And I think, and he would say that he did deserve it. He told me that, right? He said, and you know what he described himself as? A bully. A straight up bully.
And it's crazy
he described himself, Hornswoggle.
It's crazy to think that the smallest man on the roster, someone that you would think, if anything, he's getting bullied. No. If you know Dylan, you know this man.
He's a terrorist.
He really is. And I saw him at Mania. It's all love. I love seeing him now. It's all great now. We spell, that's my guy. But he's a troublemaker.
Look, they'll tell you in psychology, you got to set boundaries.
You do.
And sometimes those boundaries need to be defined. And that's all that was.
Absolutely.
That's all that was. Well, man, E, I appreciate you being so generous with your time. How I Got Over is the name of the book. Make sure that you are pre-ordering this book. Do not wait for the book to come out.
Thank you.
Please pre-order this book. It be nowadays, nobody takes any chances anymore. And they go, how much do people want this book? That is how they figure out how many we're going to publish, how many we're going to print. We want to see our guys win. We want to see them succeed. I want to see that book even more than I want to make sure that I own a copy. I want to make sure that I can walk into a brick and mortar bookstore and see it on a shelf. And the way that they print enough so it does that is they get all the pre-orders in. So please go out, find it. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google How I Got Over Big E, whatever you want to do. But get the book, pre-order it. And yeah, man, it's a remarkable journey, man. And I appreciate you sharing some of it with us. There's so much more in the book. So, we barely brushed the surface.
That's right.
Thank you for being here, man.
No, thank you so much. And it's been great to come down to the basement and see it in all its glory.
Right. Now you're in the club that's been here.
That's right.
Yeah.